2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is January 4th, 2021. I don't remember what I say after this. It's a whole new year and I forget everything. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick. Welcome to the show, Nick.
It just occurred to me this is our first show of 2021.
I think that's the first time that I've said 2021, and it threw me for such a loop that I didn't know what to do after that.
Does it feel like we're still in 2020?
I mean, does it ever feel? It's like when it's your birthday and people are like, how does it feel to be 35? Like, it feels exactly the same as I felt 34 yesterday.
I thought you were going to say, oh yeah, I feel the same as I did when I was 19.
Let's not go that far. I feel better. I'm peaking.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. How's your year been so far?
So far it's been good. I wake up, I move down to my couch, go for a walk, watch some TV, and then I go to bed.
So a lot like 2020.
Feels the same to me. Nothing's changed.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it's the exact same things as before, but you know, some of us have gotten back to work.
Yeah.
The Christmas breaks are over. NHL break is over. Training camps have opened up. We have a lot to get to this week. But first, I want to talk about something that's a callback to like months ago. It might even be a year more ago. Do you remember when we talked about octopus fighting?
Yes.
I've got an update to that story.
Oh, great. Do you have like alerts or something? Like, how did you find it?
Shockingly, in between all the Andrew Ladd updates that I was getting through my alerts this week, I got this one.
All right, let's hear it.
If you've seen this, stop me. But there was a video released by, and I don't even know which, video released in an article in December 18th of a octopus just punching a fish for no reason at all. So this fish is swimming by, and this octopus, for no reason, just reaches out and punches a fish. So, as is described, the octopus, again, this is an audio podcast. I'm going to describe it as the scientists described it. The octopus lashes out with a swift, explosive motion with one arm in an attack which we refer to as punching. Scientists wrote in a new study. Which I like how scientific they get it. This motion this octopus made, we have defined as punching. However, it is true. The fish would get pushed to the edge of the group or would eventually leave the group. Sometimes after a while it would return. Other times it would not return at all. The octopus would leave the fish alone after displacing it. The octopuses were previously known to throw defensive punches when attacked. This is the first time their punching has been scientifically described and linked to collaborative hunting. So as we get fired up for this season, Nick, and we think of, you know, the Red Wings being our respective octopus on the ice, how are you looking forward to not defensive punching, but offensive punching from the Red Wings this season?
First of all, can you read that description again from the scientists? I love the colorful language.
Of the punch.
Yeah.
The octopus lashes out with a swift, explosive motion with one arm in an attack which we refer to as punching.
A swift, explosive arm. That is beautiful writing.
They missed their opportunity to be a journalist, is what they did.
I 100% agree. That's fantastic. I know I can picture it in my head like it worked. Yeah. What was your question again?
Because this is the first time that we've had evidence of offensive punching. What can we expect from the Red Wings for offensive punching?
Because you're saying there hasn't been evidence of offensive punching from our on ice octopuses before. Is that what you're saying?
And not for a while.
I am expecting them to be a little better than they were last year.
You know what? That's all we can ask for.
That's it. We'll get into it more later in our preview.
That's fair. Okay, maybe this is what we should do for every preview, but let's ask this question from the Red Wings perspective. If you had to pick one player on the team who would lash out with a swift, explosive motion with one arm, which we refer to as punching, which Red Wing are you picking?
Oh, it's Tyler Bertuzzi.
I knew as soon as I started asking the question, I knew that was the answer, and I hated that was the answer.
Your Avs know that.
Look, you know how I feel about the Bertuzzi family in respect to the Avalanche.
Yeah, actually, okay, let's go back and re-record that part right there.
Yeah, not so good. All right, let's get to. We have a lot to talk about this week. Let's start back. One piece that we did not get a chance to talk about last week is a modification to the offside rule this coming season. The change is that the player skate previously, you had to have your skate either on the ice or it was offside. Now, if your skate is above the blue line when you're crossing over, that now counts as being onside. I'm very thankful for this change.
Yeah, this is a good rule change. This is a really good tweak. It should help with the challenge immensely.
I'm really excited. Like, I'm looking forward big time to not having to be staring at like shadows of skate blades from across the ice on a grainy camera.
And yeah, exactly. The graininess, like the pixelated view of the zoom in where they just pick that one square of the screen to zoom in on, like a terrible segment on 24.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to see Bob McKenzie yelling enhance at the screen as they're trying to look at it, but that's going to be fixed. So that's good. I think it will speed up a lot of these challenges. We'll see less of them.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the rule is still there. Even if you are like hovering above it, you're still at that same point in the ice. I don't care if you've lifted your skate or you're striding over it. I don't care. Your position on the ice is the exact same. It should be that.
I'm just thinking about this now. Remember in the playoffs, was it last year or 2 years ago when Landeskog was making that line change?
Uh-huh.
Would this reverse that instance? That's why you like the rule so much. It's all making sense.
Can we just retroactively go back? Look, we don't have anything else to be doing right now. Can we just go back and replay that one and then carry on with the rest of the playoffs?
Oh, man. What a brutal thing to happen. That whole thing's coming back to me now. Anyways, this is a positive thing for the game. This is a positive thing for the Avalanche.
And the whole league. I don't care who it is. Like, every team at some point has had to deal with this and has had a goal or a play called back because of this. And that's not a thing anymore. Yeah.
So it improves the game and the rules. It also improves the viewing experience.
Yeah.
And the entertainment value.
Yeah. If you're a new fan coming into the game and this is the detail and minutia that people were stuck on, I could not imagine that being a fun experience.
No.
All right.
So great rule change.
Great rule change. Training camps are open. We've got contracts being signed. One of them, a little surprising, Zdeno Chara off to the Washington Capitals. His time with the Boston Bruins has come to an end. Their captain is gone. For the low price of $900,000, Washington managed to swoop him away. Is 43-year-old Zdeno Chara enough? Is this good for the Caps?
At that price? Yeah, what does it hurt? He's obviously not in it for the money, but like, don't you think a guy like that with that character and that experience in the locker room is worth it alone?
Absolutely. Yeah. You've got to have a guy like that. And I don't get why Boston couldn't or didn't find the way to make that happen.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what happened there. That whole thing seems like a bit of a mess. And like from Chara's perspective, if he was looking to have a bigger role on the ice, which it sounds like Boston was moving away from, is he going to get that in Washington?
Yeah, I would not expect him to have a more significant role than he would in Boston. Certainly there's going to be, some time for him to adjust and be able to provide that. But I mean, Washington has less depth than Boston, so I guess so, but like I would say he's going to have a very similar role.
You would think so. And it's not like Boston can't afford the, whatever you said it was, 900,000,
Yeah.
795, whatever it is. I don't get what happened in Boston for their longtime captain to part ways like that, but it's very weird.
It does seem like, I mean, in general, Boston's offseason has been confusing with all of what they are or aren't doing, right? The fact that it took this long. I mean, Chara said that he gave he wanted to stay, he tried to stay, they didn't want him. Which I guess at some point you got to cut ties, but it just seems like an interesting choice.
Well, it's weird because they're not really, like, Boston's not a team that I would look at and want to shake up too much. Like, they're one of the best teams in the league. So why do you want to mess with the fabric of your locker room like that?
Right. Absolutely. And in general, like, they're not an old team either. Like, no. you can have one old Zdeno Chara on that roster. Sure, he literally will pull up the average age of that team by about 1 year by putting him on, but that's fine.
I agree. It's a very weird move for Boston for me. Now, the question I wanted to ask you when I saw this, because I like speculating with you, is who's going to get the C?
Bergeron gets the C in Boston.
It's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
Could it be anybody else? Like, if they named, I don't think it can be Pastrnak, Marchand, or Krejci.
I mean, here's the real trick of it. They have multiple players whose initials are CC. So it could be, you could give it to Charlie Coyle. You could give it to Connor Clifton. If you're feeling it particularly fancy, you could give it to Charlie McAvoy. And all of those could work. If you're wanting to stray a little bit, you could go with Jake DeBrusk if you're really wanting to stray from it. But there's a lot of choices there.
You weren't kidding earlier when you told me you zoned in on some weird things this week. I like the sound of Captain Charlie Coyle.
Yeah, I mean, I actually spent most of this weekend watching Pirates of the Caribbean Marathon. That sounds like a very good pirate.
I agree. I would watch that 3-minute Halloween video they put together.
I would love a Boston Bruins themed pirate video. Thank you for making me want that now.
There you go, NHL. More content from the Fourth Line podcast.
You got it. You're welcome. All right, other signings. Pierre-Luc Dubois. Almost 2 hours after it came out that he was unhappy with the team and had requested a trade, he signed a 2-year, $5 million per extension to stay in Columbus. Just a bridge deal, still a restricted free agent after, but still not happy with the team. Trade rumors aplenty.
Another weird one to me. Like, this team is not bad. They're not great, but they go further every year than everybody thinks they will. So why do you want to jump ship now?
But I think back to Ryan Johansson when he was with this team and he had issues. He actually held out, didn't sign.
Yeah.
And then eventually ended up getting traded to Nashville and Seth Jones going back the other way. So this is like, there is a history with this organization with these young players not loving it there. But like Pierre-Luc Dubois also did, like, he had a great year last year. Don't get me wrong, but does not have a lot of like bent up, good favor with this team, right? They trusted in him, put the time in and helped him develop. And now he's there, but I think he owes this team as much as they owe him.
I totally agree. And like, he's their best forward, right?
Yeah. And I'm not sure it's close.
I don't think it's close either. Like, it would be pretty devastating for them to lose him at this point, I think.
I'm not sure especially with the way that the trade market is right now. I don't see them getting anything replacement level for him.
No. If anything, they should be building around him more.
Yeah. But we see these things all the time where a player has an issue and then it gets resolved and they end up staying with the organization for a long time. He's signed for this year and next year. He's going to be on the ice. I think that he plays. I don't see him moving out of Columbus.
Do you think it's Torts?
It's absolutely Torts. Like,
guys hate playing for that guy.
But he gets results. Like,
I know. It's just miserable while you're in it.
Yeah, you don't like it, but who knows? I mean, we got Captain Nick Foligno.
Yeah.
He could settle those tides.
I think he does probably pretty often.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you know who else could settle the tides? Captain Charlie Coyle. He can make that happen. Easily.
He doesn't even need a crew. He can just drive his own ship.
All right. What else happened? Oh, yeah. We also saw some more trade rumors. As camps are opening up, we saw more trade rumors surrounding Patrik Laine and the Winnipeg Jets. Interesting that is still a thing that has yet to be resolved. Again, do you think, in the same vein, do you expect him to go anywhere?
Not imminently. I think if it happens, and I think it's bound to happen at some point, because these trade rumors just never seem to go away. But this is going to be a bigger deal. I think it'll happen later in the season, in my opinion, if it does happen.
So he still has 1 year left on his US or RFA deal. This year is his last year. He needs to sign another contract at the end of this year. And this is one that has enough legs to it that I think that we'll have some issues getting this next deal signed.
Yeah, he's also eligible for arbitration, so he can just hold out and send it to an arbitrator. Yeah. Which is how I would think that's how a deal with this kind of player is going to go.
Yep. I get that as well. But Winnipeg needs to make some significant changes in a lot of areas. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. What do you bring in for Patrik Laine? Another Patrick, he's the kind of player that they need.
Yeah. I mean, they would, I assume that they would end up moving out and trying to get a defenseman for him, but there's not a lot of good defensemen just sitting around on trade markets either. No, there's not. That said, interesting. Ooh, this just tickled my fancy. Well, mostly because Colorado Avalanche have said, as training camps open, Colorado Avalanche have said that they want Bowen Byram to be in camp. And they want to find a spot for him on this team. However, if you look at their defensemen, they currently have Cale Makar, Eric Johnson, Devin Taves, Ryan Graves, Ian Cole, and someone else whose name is escaping me right now. So Samuel Girard. There you go. So they already have 6 defensemen that are like bona fide NHL defensemen on that team. And so finding a spot for Bowen Byram means that one of those defensemen could potentially be on the market. Not saying that one of them is or would be moved for Patrik Laine, but that's a team that you could be looking at for trading out a defenseman.
You make an interesting case. You're absolutely right. They'd be a really good target for this.
Or what you do is you just wait for Eric Johnson to get hurt like he always does, and then just put Bowen Byram in there. That's how that's done. But the Avalanche today had an interesting thing. Kind of the news cycle starts and everyone was healthy. Everyone was ready for camp. And then today Coach Jared Bednar mentioned that they had 5 players who were deemed unfit to play. And you kind of brought up an interesting way that that's being handled in regards to some of the new COVID protocols.
So in training camps, that's kind of the official wording for why players can't play, whether they're hurt, whether they're sick, whether they're being held back to review video. They're unfit to play is the official wording that teams have to use. I believe that is to protect the players' privacy in terms of their personal medical information. However, that is only true for training camp. Once the regular season starts, the NHL will be releasing the names of players who test positive for COVID-19.
So last year during the postseason, they followed this similar
unfit to play
process. Why are they doing it that they're going to be releasing names come regular season?
I have no idea what the reason could be for that. Obviously, the players agreed to it. I kind of wonder if it's some sort of accountability thing.
Right.
If you're irresponsible and you go out after the game or you gather together and somebody gets sick, everybody's going to know that you were out.
Right. So the Avalanche had 5 players who were listed on that today. One of them being Captain Gabriel Landeskog. I believe the aforementioned Eric Johnson, also one of them. So a number of players on that list, 5 of them actually, who will not be playing for who knows how long, because when you just list them as unfit to play, you also don't have to specify how long they'll be unfit to play. And so presumably for days, and I would expect we will see more and more camps doing this where they are saying, we don't know, we don't have any information for you, and we're not going to. So
they don't have to.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. I kind of like that they don't have to disclose upper body, lower body, long-term, short-term. The player's just not playing and you don't get to know why.
Yeah, absolutely. Did it happen? One thing, this is a conversation we should have had before the show. The Jonathon Toews news, that happened this week, did it not?
That happened after we recorded last week.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's touch on that, because that's one where they did report it. Jonathon Toews, another captain of the Chicago Blackhawks, out for an indefinite time for an unknown reason. Apparently he's been experiencing fatigue, just general lethargicness, and doctors are still trying to find out what it is that he's struggling with. So he is going to be out for the Chicago Blackhawks for likely an extended period of time, because they still don't even know what it is that he's dealing with.
Yeah, that's scary stuff. And that's another big blow to the Blackhawks after losing Kirby Dach with a broken wrist in his World Juniors pregame. But, beyond hockey, I think this is like scary life stuff when something's wrong and you don't know what it is, and you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, I don't know what it is either. Like,
yeah,
that's freaky stuff. So I don't know. I hope the best for Jonathon Toews. I hope he recovers quickly, and I hope that we can see him back on the ice.
Absolutely. Let's stick with the one last piece of news, and then we'll get to some actual game talk. The AHL came out and finally started to piece together some of their season. Interesting thing, and AHL has dropped. There are 3 teams opting not to participate in this coming AHL season. Number of things and a number of issues having to be resolved. Again, they have to deal with the fact that they have teams on both sides of the border, much like the NHL does. They still haven't said how that's going to work. But I have already seen a number of teams going to be sharing affiliates for this year, which seems interesting in light of the fact that there's, I believe the Canucks and Blues are sharing an AHL affiliate, which when you have to cross a border, which again has its own COVID issues, is going to make for a very interesting season for movement.
It's going to make it very hard for Vancouver to call someone up to come play for the team, because coming into Canada, you got to do your 2-week quarantine.
Well, even guys signing PTOs, you get cut and then you get signed to another team, or a trade, right? Trade deadline. You think you're picking a guy up at the deadline? Well, good news. He has to quarantine for 2 weeks before he's able to actually play. So definitely player movement is going to be one that we're going to see how. And, if there very might be the fact that the government says you're fine, just do your thing. But as of right now, there's nothing that says that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the AHL was one of the dominoes that we were waiting to fall once the NHL returned to play. I believe I saw today that not all of the AHL teams are playing.
Yeah, so 28 AHL teams, 3 of them opting to sit out. I did not, don't recall the 3 right now. Let me see if I'll pull it up here while you finish your thought.
It's much hard. It's going to be much harder for an AHL team from an economic perspective with what's happening right now than the NHL team. So, without having fans in the building, their sponsorship deals aren't as lucrative. Most of them don't even have TV deals, I don't think. So I think these teams in particular, especially the ones that are not owned by NHL teams, are going to have a tough time getting through the season.
Yeah. So there's 12 of the 31 AHL teams are not owned by the NHL affiliate.
That's right. Yeah.
And they haven't said who the 3 are that are not going to be there. I could go through this long list of that team's in, that team's in, that team's in. But one thing that is interesting is it's only currently slated, they described it as a minimum of 24 games being played for these teams. So that's not really a season.
No, that's like 4 weeks.
Yeah. So they're but they're not starting till February. So they're saying we're starting in February, minimum 24 games, and the option to add more as it goes. So very fluid situation for the AHL. And I think they're very much taking it week by week at this point, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be a positive thing for the NHL though, right? Because at least their prospects are getting play time this year.
Which is going to be huge with junior hockey also still delayed and still potentially not happening.
Yeah.
And you talk about some of those teams that don't have NHL affiliate deals struggling. Junior hockey, I'm not sure what's going to happen with junior hockey when that comes back, because there are some teams that have those partnerships. I know Calgary Hitmen being one of them. I believe Vancouver Giants also have one, but some of these smaller market teams are not going to be able to come back the same way that they were, if at all.
No. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they all come back. I think it might be a little bit, if I can dip into my professional industry a little bit, it might be a little bit like the bar and restaurant scene in some of these big cities with all of them shutting down. A lot of them they're like, look, we can't afford to come back. And I think we'll probably see something similar from these small market teams.
Yeah. Or ownership coming in and some new ownership taking
some
over
changes for sure
in some of these, which, I mean, if you're someone looking to get into, I mean, not talking to the listeners, but if you are someone looking to get into the minor or junior hockey ownership market, now's a great time.
What do we pull in for ad revenue, Carl? Let's see if we can make this happen.
You know what? I don't know. You tell me, how far from you is Sault Ste. Marie?
Sault Ste. Marie is very far.
So you're telling me it's in the middle of nowhere. So the Greyhound's got to be cheap, right?
Yeah, probably.
And you know what? Then we can advertise at the games. We're officially a Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds podcast. That's what we
love it. Let's do it.
All right. World Juniors. Those are happening right now as we speak. Game number 1 of the semifinals is happening. Canada is up 4-0. Yep, still 4-0. Any thoughts on the teams left? We got Canada, Russia right now, USA, Finland coming up later this evening.
Any thoughts on the teams? I haven't watched much USA. Finland, wow, what a quarterfinals game against Sweden. They went down, I think it was 3-0, 3-0.
2-0,
and they
I believe.
2-0, and they came back and won 3-2 with a goal in the dying seconds of the game. Really impressive drive from that team in that game.
I feel bad for Sweden. Sweden's big thing was they hadn't lost a regular round robin game in 54. They've gone 54 in a row without a loss. Ended up losing 2 of them, but that Russia-Sweden game and the Finland-Sweden game were spectacular. So sad that Sweden's out of it, because boy, did they play some fantastic games. But
yeah, they were fun to watch.
And I mean, U.S. has had some great games. Trevor Zegras still leading this tournament in points. I believe he got tied tonight. But some great play coming from the U.S. team. I would expect a Canada-U.S. final, although as we saw against Sweden, you can't count Finland out.
You can't count Finland out. I think the U.S. is the better team. So yeah, you're right. We should absolutely see a Canada-U.S. final. What have your thoughts been on Team Canada throughout the tournament?
Their depth is ridiculous, which we know. We know that with every Team Canada, but with the amount of NHL level players that shouldn't be in this tournament this year, if the NHL was happening, we see that even more. Like, I think every forward for Team Canada is a first-round draft pick.
They have 20 first-round draft picks on this team.
Yeah. It's unreal. Like, no other team has that kind of depth, and Canada always has depth. It's a matter of trying to gel, because other countries have this Russia team went, Dylan was talking a couple weeks ago. This Russia team went to a men's tournament and played. The U.S. development camps, they play together. The teams in Europe play together more. The Canada team, it's an issue of coaching and bringing that together. They had a little bit more this time. They obviously got shut down for COVID, but I think just giving them that extra talent just makes it not fair.
Even when they're not playing at their best, they're ways ahead of the opposition.
Yeah.
There have been games where Canada should have been winning 7-0 and it was 2-1 or something, and it still wasn't even really close.
No.
So I would expect a Canada-US final as well. I would expect Canada to win gold.
Yeah, I do think this will be the tightest game that Canada has. Even the game against Finland in the round robin wasn't super close of a game. Canada played really well. They played well against the Czechs in the first round. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that final, though, no matter who it's against.
And thoughts on Bowen Byram?
Looks great. I mean, he has that not full Cale Makar level of ability, but definitely a similar style and a similar ability to what I see from Cale Makar. So being able to have two of them on the same team is going to be fun.
This would be huge, man. He's very active in the offensive zone.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch.
Literally, the third goal tonight happened because he took the puck, rushed, and then chaos happened, and Askarov dropped a stick again. So, which is, disappointing that he's not having a good game, because I was excited to see a good performance from him. He's had a fine enough tournament, but the critics are out in full force tonight against Askarov.
Whatever. It's goalies. Right? And when we can judge this goalie on a 5-game sample? Come on.
You're not? Judging a goalie off of an entire season sometimes is a questionable decision, let alone a 5-game tournament.
You should just never judge a goalie.
Yeah. How'd you do
Can't figure them out.
We'll just pay you based on I know wins are a terrible stat, but we'll pay you for wins. How about that? It's all performance bonuses. Okay, that's what you're getting. All right. Let us take a break here, and we'll be back on the other side previewing the Central Division. Welcome back, everyone. We are here to preview our second division preview this week, looking at the Central Division. Next week, we're actually going to do a double preview. We're talking East and North next week, but this week, Central Division, which begs the question. We're going to play a little game to start off this segment. Nick, can you name all 8 teams in the Central Division?
There's 8 of them?
Okay. I shouldn't have given you that.
Okay. Detroit. Yes. I'll say it the way Elliot Friedman does for some reason. Detroit. Detroit. Chicago.
Yeah.
Dallas.
For some reason, yeah.
Detroit, Chicago, Dallas, Columbus, Tampa, Florida, Nashville?
You're missing one more. This next one might be the hardest.
It's not Colorado. They're in the West. I said Dallas. St. Louis is in the West. Minnesota's in the West. All these Central teams are in the West for some reason. I said Columbus. I don't know. Hit me with it.
Obviously, it is the Carolina Hurricanes. The most
Carolina.
central of teams.
Oh, I knew that too, because they're the last team the Red Wings played almost a year ago. And the first team will be playing in a couple weeks.
Well, there you get
Carolina.
Started with them. I think they chose Carolina to like give Florida and Tampa another Southern team for them to, and I get Nashville, but just to keep those Southern teams together. So it's more of like a Southeast Central division than a Central division, but that's what we have.
Less words. It takes up less space on screens and papers and stuff.
We'll call it Central. We'll put Minnesota in the West and St. Louis. We'll just, who cares about geography? Did we put this together? Did they ask us and our well-known geography? They're like, all right, let's, in the North, what do we want to do? Canadian team? Yeah, we can name the 7 Canadian teams. Sure. Geography, US. All right, who's Central? I don't know.
Yeah. All we need to do is request a bunch of darts and a map. And they'll say, okay, choose the Central now. Flick, 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 flick.
Yeah, I would know in this East Division. I don't know who's more Central, Boston or Carolina. Do you?
I would think Carolina is.
More Central?
Yeah.
Huh.
Boston's like right on the coast.
Isn't Carolina right on the state of Carolina is Raleigh?
I don't know if Raleigh is, but Boston's like right there.
Well, because they're well known for their pirating.
You
need the coast.
Exactly.
All right, I'm pulling up a map here. We're going to figure this out.
We pull up a map every week.
Yeah. It's a learning experience for all of us.
You should just bookmark it.
So Raleigh is about 2/3. It's almost dead central North Carolina.
I'm pulling up the map too.
It's, if not, it's kind of dead central. Boston's definitely more east. In fact, like all of North Carolina is west of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Man, that eastern seaboard really falls off a cliff. It's steeper than I thought. They really jam-packed those states up in there. Huh.
This has been our geography corner on the Fourth Line podcast.
All right, let's preview some teams here then. Format we did last week is to follow our summer top 10 division format, where we start and we figure out the ranking of these teams from bottom to top. You said we would preview the Red Wings later. Let's start. Coming in at number 8, Detroit.
Yeah, easily the worst team in this division. Better than they were last year, but still by far the worst team in this division.
And I would say, for looking at the other, like, this is the division with the least bad teams. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think I would say that's true. I mean, all of these teams made the play-in thing in May.
Yep. Except for Detroit.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them moved on to the first round.
2 of them literally played in the Stanley Cup final.
That's true.
Which is not happening this year. We're not having a cup rematch.
Yeah, that's true, eh? Crazy.
So, Detroit's coming in last, probably by a fair amount.
I would think by a fair amount. They've improved their goaltending. They've improved their blue line. They've added a little bit of depth in their forward group. None of it is enough to to put them in a playoff position, which is okay. They're not in that part of their rebuild yet.
No, but the thing that most people will be looking for out of the Red Wings this year is which high-end prospects are going to be playing for this team of recent first-round picks for the Wings. Who can we be looking for this year?
Philip Zdeno should be a full-time player this year. He's been playing in the Czech League, so he's ready to go. I think he got like 15 points in 20 something games last year. I'm just going off the top of my head, guys, so I'm sorry if that's wrong. Going further back, Evgeny Svechnikov still hasn't had a fair shake at the NHL level due to some injuries. He should be pushing for a spot this year. Those would be the two kind of recent first round picks. Then of course there's like the Mantha and Larkin, who have already kind of cemented themselves as core players here. So
Lucas Raymond, who I've really enjoyed watching him in the tournament right now.
Got beat up a little bit though, didn't he?
Did get a little wounded there, but we won't be expecting him this season.
I doubt it.
Okay.
Not this year. Maybe next year he'll start pushing for a spot. There are a couple defensemen who should be pushing for spots. Dennis Cholowski was picked 15th overall a couple years ago. Gustav Lindstrom should be pushing for a spot as well. But they've had a harder time sticking than some of the forwards have.
Yeah, because that's Dennis Cholowski, a name that has kind of been around as one of those guys to make that next step.
Yeah.
And struggling to. So
yeah.
All right. For me, looking at number 7, we got some good teams in this division. But I am going to say, I want to say the Chicago Blackhawks are going to come in at number 7. What do you think?
It's not even a question for me. You look at the rest of these teams, Chicago is, it's weird to say the worst, but they're the worst out of the rest of them.
Well, and so we touched on Jonathon Toews being out. Yep. Kirby Dach's out. Last year, they managed to have Robin Lehner there. Was traded at the deadline, not back. Corey Crawford no longer with this team. So Malcolm Subban is potentially and likely going to be the starting goalie. Colin Delia was also there last year. So they've got both of them as goalies. Not good enough.
No. And look, we just spent a few minutes talking about how we should never judge a goalie, but these goalies are not going to cut it for this team. I'm sorry.
No. I think we've seen enough to know that they are not full-time starting goalie caliber.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that this team, Stan Bowman's done an amazing job at turning this team around and setting them up for success in the very near future. I just don't think that they're there yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I agreed. They did well. Obviously, the Alex DeBrincat pick really helps them out. That makes them look real good.
Yeah.
But Jonathon Toews out. You've got lack of goaltending. Kirby Dach out. It's going to be a tough year for the Blackhawks. So let's put them in at number 7.
Yeah.
What are you thinking for 6?
Let me pull up the teams again. Number 6. It's got to be, I think, Florida. The Panthers.
Yeah, I've got like a grouping of 3 here and then a top grouping of 3.
Okay, hold on. Is your grouping of 3 Florida, Nashville, Columbus?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Cool. Yeah,
does one of those stand out for you, like, significantly?
No. I mean, Columbus is one of those teams that on paper never really looks that good and they overperform.
Yes.
So I hesitate to put them this low on the list. I still think Nashville is in the good category. I think they're kind of better than what they showed last year. Florida is a team who I'm always like, this team should be good, and they never are.
Right. The opposite of the Jackets, where
Yes.
every year this is the year and they don't do it. And I'm with you. I think what's interesting is of these, if we have our top 3 teams, which I agree, of the 3 teams, Columbus, Nashville, Florida, only one of those is making the playoffs. So I'm with you. I think I'm putting Florida in at 6. I would expect Bobrovsky to have a better showing this year than he did last year.
He has to.
Right? He has enough. He's shown us enough in his time in Columbus that he can perform well. Last year, I'm just going to assume, was an anomaly.
Yeah, and they need him to be the Bobrovsky that they signed for $10.5 million a year. If they're going to have any success, they need that out of him. It'll be interesting to see what Joel Quenneville can get out of the group this year. But I don't really trust this team. Like they make moves that I'm like, why did the Vincent Trocheck trade last year? Why did you do that? Acquiring Patrick Hornqvist. Why?
Yeah, no need for that. I mean, but then they go ahead and they sign Anthony Duclair to a steal of a deal. So they go out and they spend big money. I mean, maybe bigger than they should, but they went out and they got Bobrovsky, one of the biggest free agent pieces of last offseason. So they make these good moves. They make these bad moves. I'm with you on that, though. And kind of the core of this team are past that stage where we're like, what can they do? What should they be doing? Like they should have won. They should have had playoff success by now, and they haven't. Yeah.
They kind of feel like they're on the other. You look at some of the core guys on this team, and you're right. If they would have done it, if they were going to do it, they would have done it by now.
Which I like to look at Alexander Barkov and say, you're 25 years old and you haven't done it yet. You probably won't. I think I want to give him and this team, same with Aaron Ekblad, I want to give them more chances, but I just repeatedly don't see it. And
Barkov's only 25. Sorry.
Yeah. Right.
He looks way older than that. Anyways.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So I'm looking at them at 6, Nashville, Columbus as the other 2. Which one you putting at 4? Which one you putting at 5?
I got to have a look at this Nashville roster because, like I said, they still haven't really fallen off the cliff for me in my head yet, but their results the last couple of years have not been good. So I'm trying to figure out exactly where this team should be falling. Matt Duchene has to be better for them.
I think that's Matt Duchene's motto at this point in time.
Oh man, this is like this is the one contract that kind of jumps out as scary to me. If he keeps playing the way he did last year, so he needs to be better. I mean, I think they have good depth. I think they just need more top line scoring.
Yeah, well, you've got Philip Forsberg there. He's going to continue to produce. He's going to do well. And a lot of that really good depth that Nashville had has kind of gone away as they've spent $8 million on Ryan Johansson, another $8 million on Matt Duchene. You kind of lose out on that, right? Roman Josi rightfully getting paid $9 million, but you can't have that slew of good $4 million players. You now have to be paying, Rocco Grimaldi $2 million to fill this roster out.
Yeah. I mean, they're at the point where they've made their bets on the players that they think are going to lead the charge for them, right? And now they add around that.
Absolutely. I think every year I say that this is UC Saros' year to take
I was going to ask you about him. I was going to ask you.
But last year I didn't see anything that the excitement of UC Saros disappeared. When he actually got the chance, I was like, oh, not what I wanted to see.
So have you given up? Is it done?
I think this is the year, right? This is Pekka Rinne's last year. This is the year that me and the Nashville Predators need to decide. I do think that we will see an extensive amount of him this year. Pekka Rinne, 38 years old, the compact schedule. We're going to see a lot of Saros, and this is how they'll be able to know for real and for sure if he is the one moving forward. Because last year was not it. If this year is also not it, they've got to move on. But I've seen enough to still have glimmers of hope, and I'm holding on to it.
It's sink or swim for him this year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't judge goalies, so
you're not a goalie evaluator?
I'm not a goalie evaluator.
Well, there we go.
Unless it's convenient for me, then I will.
That's fair. We kind of touched on the Blue Jackets a bit earlier in talking about the Pierre-Luc Dubois. Assuming that he does not get traded, the point you made earlier that this team always does better in reality than they do on paper, I expect to happen this year. Again, you're not a goalie evaluator, but Elvis Merzlikins shone greatly last year until he had his injury. I would expect one of those two goalies to get hot. This team performs well and they get the most out of everyone and play the style of play that's tailored to the guys on this team. And I expect them to do that again this year.
Yeah, I do too. They don't really have any kind of individual standouts, which we've kind of talked about already. They just get it done. And if they can get some of these young players into the rotation too, the Alexander Texier, the Liam Foudy, Cliff Poo is just a great hockey name that I wanted to call out. I think that, they should be able to keep themselves in the conversation for the playoffs. They should finish ahead of Nashville, and they should finish ahead of the other team we were talking about. Florida. Thank you.
I would agree. Let's look at the top three in this division then. We have Carolina, Dallas, and Tampa left. An interesting set because, Carolina has been like the hot young team the last number of years. This is the team that you look at and say, they're going to make that jump. And they did last year.
Yeah.
And then you have the Stanley Cup finalists as the other two teams.
Now, we're talking about regular season rankings here, which means we're talking about a Tampa Bay Lightning team without Nikita Kucherov. How big of a difference does that make to you?
Big difference. Absolutely. He's their best player. To take, even like for any of these teams to take their best player off would be a huge blow. So definitely Tampa missing him. But also Dallas, Tyler Seguin's going to be out to start the season as well. And he's, a huge part of that offense. So both of those teams missing big pieces. And those were the teams that I probably would have put them, without those injuries, I probably would have gone Dallas 3, Carolina 2, Tampa 1.
Interesting.
Where would you slot that?
Well, I think Tampa's first on my list for sure. It's not even really close. I'd maybe put Dallas ahead of Carolina if that team's fully healthy. That's just kind of where my gut was. I could easily be talked into Carolina finishing ahead of Dallas because if you said they took a huge step last year, if they continue to take another big step this year, that could just put them at that next level.
That said, how much faith do you have in, again, I said that, and then I looked at this roster and was reminded of the fact that I just said that a team backstopped by James Reimer and Peter Mrazek was going to finish second in a division.
I don't know, man. You just got to take the Maple Leafs approach. Just outscore your opponents. Just score more goals than them.
How does that work for the Leafs?
They lost to the Blue Jackets, right? So by that logic, should we be putting these guys below the Blue Jackets?
Let's move the Jackets up. We're doing it.
I think this team is in a position to outscore their opponents every night.
And I also think they're very solid defensively on this.
Yeah.
Like they've got good defense in front of those goalies that is going to help them out. And that's what they need to be doing, right? We've seen a shift in the usage of a lot of these guys, as Carolina was like the Corsi favorites for a number of years because they just sat at the blue line and shot pucks in. With Rod the Bod behind the bench now, it's changed a little bit. They're becoming a better down low team. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of that this year, seeing some of those guys, Sebastian Aho continuing to do his thing, Teravainen continue to, and, Svechnikov taking that, continuing that development. A lot of these guys are at that point where they kind of are what we thought, right? Sebastian Aho, I don't expect to continue to get better. Svechnikov, I do. Some of those defensemen, I could see continue to improve, but a lot of these players are kind of at that point.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said.
Excellent.
Does that solve our ranking problem?
I don't think so. So I agree. Tampa's number one. Where do you sit on Dallas?
I mean, I look at this Dallas team, and last year I looked at these names, and in no world last year was I like they're going to go to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah.
So I'm tempted to put Dallas at number 3 because I look at these names again, and outside of the vacuum of the bubble and that just kind of crazy period of time where we played so much hockey after not playing hockey at all. In a more normal season, I don't know if this Dallas team is a top 2 division team.
Well, and I think in the same way, right? Like Ben Bishop cannot stay healthy.
Yeah,
he's shown that repeatedly. Anton Khudobin showed well enough last year that he could get that job done as the backup. Rightfully earned an extension, but I'm not thrilled with having to fully rely on him. And yeah, there's some guys that I'm excited about on this team, right? Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah.
Love him, right?
He's great.
Fantastic. Rupe Hintz continued to improve. Didn't expect too much of him. Gotten a lot better. Radek Faksa, same thing. So kind of a lot of these guys that I didn't really expect much out of have really turned into what I thought was depth players, have turned into like a solid second line level player.
Yeah. Not to mention Julius Honka, just a great name that I wanted to call out.
Man, this division's full of great ones.
It's true.
So I'm with you. I think it's going to be close between Carolina and Dallas for 2.
Yeah.
I think Tampa's going to kind of run away with it. And I mean, we touched on Tampa a fair amount with the trades they made and the moves last week.
Yeah.
Nothing outside of that. No real significant moves of new players on this team.
No, not really. I guess the other kind of newsworthy piece is just that Stamkos is good to go. He's ready to start the season. We'll see how that plays out. And there's nothing else. There's nothing else crazy about this team.
No. Let's play. I don't know if you were on the page or not, but let's play an interesting game called "How Many More Years Are the Lightning Paying Vincent Lecavalier?"
I'm on the page, but I'm not looking at it right now, so I scrolled up, so I can't see it.
Okay. How many more? He was bought out in 2013. How many more seasons do they have to pay Vincent Lecavalier?
2 more seasons.
Counting this year, they have 7 more seasons. He is getting paid until 2027.
What? How much? I gotta see.
He gets $1.7 million a year from now until 2027.
It's not a bad deal.
You know what? Works for him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't hit the cap, though.
Does not hit the cap. No, that was one of the lockout compliance buyouts or whatever they called it. Even so, if he had have stayed with Tampa, he would have finished that deal last year. If he had have stayed a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, he would have finished that deal last year. Is not in the league any longer.
Yeah, they did the right thing by buying him out.
They do not win. spoilers, they do not win a Stanley Cup with $7.7 million of retired Vincent Lecavalier on the books.
No, absolutely not. Can you imagine though? Like, I assume this gets paid out in bi-weekly installments, like a regular paycheck. Just sitting on your couch and refreshing your account every 2 weeks for doing nothing.
At this point in time, nothing.
At this point in time. He did bring them a Stanley Cup once upon a time.
Yeah. So he did do that, but interesting. Anyways, that's our Central Division. We'll be looking next week with the World Juniors done and hopefully kind of settling into some of this camp news and some of that. We'll be looking next week at our East and North divisions. Still have half the league left to preview. But here's the great news. You know what happens the week after that?
Hockey.
Games. We have games to talk about.
Hockey. What's the first game you're going to watch? Are you going to watch like the season opener on is it the 13th?
I thought it was the 14th, but I'm going to watch the games. I'm gonna watch
all the games. I'm just gonna watch all the games. Get that picture-in-picture ready.
I've got, I'll have the iPad up. I'll have a game on the computer. I'll have a game on the TV. Maybe I'll bring the second TV in from downstairs and I'll just have all the screens in here. Like I did in the playoffs. During the playoffs, I ran a 2 TV monitor iPad setup and then was told I was using too much internet.
Well, here you go, Carl. Wednesday, January 13th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, Pittsburgh at Philadelphia. That's the NHL season opener.
I'll tune into that.
Followed by Montreal at Toronto at 7 p.m. Okay. Chicago, Tampa at 8, and then the Pacific Lake games.
You said 5:30 is the first game?
5:30 Eastern. Okay, nice afternoon game for you on Wednesday, January 13th.
I will not be tuning into that game. I am otherwise occupied at 3:30 in the afternoon. But Leafs Habs I'll be tuning into. I'll tune into the end of I'm going to want to watch Carter Hart make his season debut. So
absolutely. And then your Avs play that night against St. Louis.
And those are going to be, they did release, if you are a fan of a specific team, most teams today released their schedule with times. So you can put those into your calendar. And kind of like we previewed last week, a lot of them, except for the North Division, because they're having to play across the entirety of Canada, a lot of them are one time zone, kind of stick to a time. It does get a little weird for the North teams, but put those in your calendar. You can be ready for games until they get moved around because of COVID.
Yeah, which is going to happen.
We had 5 guys in Avalanche camp unfit to play after one day of practice.
You don't know why.
I know.
Maybe he had a tummy ache.
You know what? Here's the interesting thing, though. If it is a tummy ache, maybe I saw that Landeskog and Mikko Rantanen were watching the World Junior game together. Mikko Rantanen not listed, so clearly Landeskog ate something that Rantanen didn't.
Could be. You don't know, Carl. They just said he's unfit to play.
It's true. Well, we'll see how many of them are fit to play soon and how many other players around the league are also unfit to play soon.
Yes, we will. We'll find out.
And next week, we'll talk about that all together. We'll talk about this. Canada just wrapped up 5-0 victory over the Russians. We'll talk about our gold medal game. Most likely Canada-US, unless we're wrong. And by the time this episode comes out, you'll know that. We don't know that yet. So that's a fun thing that you get to do. But we'll be back next week, Monday nights as well, ready for you, ready to get this NHL season fired up. I'm excited. You can head to the fourthlinepodcast.com to find more about our show, at Fourth Line Podcast on Twitter. Let us know your thoughts. If you have thoughts from this week, love to hear them. Join in as we're talking, more games happening. We're going to be firing those up. We'll get, we've been kind of stewing and brainstorming some ideas for some new games and some new giveaway ideas this year. So we're going to kind of change that up. I think there's 4 or 5 of you, and this is on me 100%. I don't want you to think this is on Nick. for those of you who won high sticking during the playoffs, I'm going to mail you your things.
Thank you for taking accountability for that.
But I want to get them in the mail before the season starts. That seems like honestly the least I could do. So that's my goal. My New Year's resolution is to mail you those before the season starts. So with the holidays done and all of that and settling back into the new year, let's get that done. And by let's, I mean me. Let's get it together, Carl. Until next week.
Time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. The Central Division has a lot of good teams. They're probably gonna lose, but let's go Red Wings.